am Molly Hill, the artist and automotive enthusiast. Let's get started. Welcome to Cars and Art, Art and Cars. What am I doing here, and why such fancy work on such a busted panel? This is a test piece. It has been many years since I have airbrushed BURL wood grain, and it's a good warm-up. I would rather make my mistakes on this beat-up panel than on the customer's actual car. Also, for them, it's a sample of what the finished product will look like. I ended up having to make it a tad darker. Obviously easier to do on here than on the actual job. Additionally, the BURL is going on a plastic interior panel, which is tricky. Why is that? The application is a no-brainer. Getting it to stay on over time is the challenge without embarrassing scratch or rub-throughs revealing the original color underneath. With the paintwork being more involved than a simple color change, it is especially crucial the paint sticks. I sought advice from some professionals I know, and it comes down to prep and adhesion promoter, which I will discuss in the next segment. Okay, so prep on plastic panels. This is the inexpensive way to do it. I would highly recommend using SEM products. I got lucky on this job because the car was really clean, but I had used this method on an interior that was pretty dirty, and it turned out decent, but not without problems. So this works in a pinch if you're doing something that's clean. But like I said, ideally, I would recommend using the SEM system. I used SEM for years when I worked in aviation on private jets. And anyhow, amazing stuff. It was just flawless. Everything functioned well. As a matter of fact, I have a SEM bedliner kit for Thunder Bucket that I'm going to get on there one of these days before it expires. My husband got it the Christmas before last. So first of all, you're going to start off by scrubbing it down with some dish soap. This is, the Aldi's discount brand. It works just as well as Dawn. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing, but you get yourself a bucket of water and just use a little bit of that, because if you use too much, it will have an adverse effect where your paint will not stick just because because it's soap. But it will blast away the grease or interior detail or whatever may be lurking on the surface. Of course, a Scotch-Brite helps to get into the crevices. Me personally, I don't care what color, but I just happen to have a gray one. I think the green one works better. But just scrub the panel down with a light amount of soap, rinse it, dry it, and then after that, you're going to sand it with, I have here 220. I can't remember what I used on the product, 220 or 320, but either way, rough up the surface pretty good. You don't want to go too rough because then you'll have scratch marks on your panel, and you don't want to go too light because then you won't have a roughed up surface for the paint to cling to. And then I blow it off. You want to try and get as much of the sanding dust off as possible. This is my amazing, crazy, powerful air sprayer. I've actually had this since I worked on those private jets I was telling you about, but OSHA compliant. So yeah, it's the most powerful air sprayer on the planet, and it's supposedly safe. Just don't blow in your face. It's not good. Anyhow, and then wipe it down with lacquer thinner. Gets rid of any residual grease, auto detailer, whatever might be still lurking on the surface. And then before you paint, you have your adhesion promoter. This is just the 3M brand. The most famous one or the most well-known one I should say, is called Bulldog. But there's several brands out there. The Bulldog, I guess because of the name, it was significantly more. Believe it or not, the 3M was cheaper. Usually 3M's the most expensive stuff, but it's a good brand. So I got the 3M, and on the can it says you spray it on your surface. Oh yeah, of course, side note, you want to let your lacquer thinner fume off real good before you go to this step. But anyhow, so according to the instructions, you want to spray it on there. Just do a nice light coat. Don't puddle it. At the same time, you don't want it so light it doesn't do anything, but you spray it on there. You let it do its thing for 10 minutes, and as close as you can to exactly 10 minutes after it's done its thing, then you spray your base coat of paint on. I'm using automotive paint on this because of the nature of it, because it is artwork. There are people that have gotten automotive paint to stick on the interior panels, but I need to do a little more research, a little more learning to figure out a definitive thing other than just using adhesion promoter or then the SEM system. The SEM system can be limited on colors, so that's the drawback of that, although it's a surefire thing. Where automotive paint, you can make it any color you want. Good prep and adhesion promoter is the best way I have found so far. So here we are working on the actual car. It's a 2014 Chevy Impala. The customer requested the lower door panel pockets to be painted to match the BURL trim on the upper section. I also own a 2014 Chevy Impala. It was my daily driver when having a day job. It's a wonderful car, and made doing this project easier as I own the reference. I have already performed the prep as mentioned in the last segment. Additionally, everything has been masked off with plastic. Spray paint will get everywhere. Sprayed paint, I should say, will get everywhere. Better to not have to deal with the agitation of having to remove overspray from a customer's vehicle. The base coat is being applied with a detail gun. Light coats are best. Puddling the paint will cause a lack of adhesion, irregardless of the best materials. The base color is a dark ochre. That would be like a brown yellow. I have the ability to eyeball colors, so this wasn't mixed using a machine or a formula. In general, when creating wood grain colors, the most natural and neutral, the better. Most of the time replicating wood grain, the base color will be some spectrum of golden beige or tan ochre-like color. 2 light coats were applied and then allowed to fume off per the time specified on the product. I think this one takes 10 to 15 minutes. Speaking of paint, this is urethane enamel, pretty much modern automotive color. I don't use anything fancy as I'm just doing the art on the interior at that. Something exterior that needs to hold up for many years of UV and wear would warrant a reputable brand. Additionally, automotive paint is nasty stuff. It is highly toxic. There is a reason why it is so expensive. Anyhow, so with that, you notice I am wearing a mask. Absolutely wear a mask whenever you are working with any of this. I know people, older guys that have some serious health problems because they didn't do this when they were younger. Now we have our base coat down, fumed off, and ready to go. Time for the fun part. Here's our 4 bottles of paint, the air compressor, and the airbrush. This is a mid-tone brown, which will be used for the base of the grain. This is the base coat color, just in case some touch-up is needed. A lighter version for highlights. And then we have a very dark brown black for the second part of the wood grain. These stencils are of my own design, made from cardstock, emulating the finger-like undulations in BURL wood grain. It is not my intention to make the grain look photorealistic. It would take way too long and result in a hefty price tag. Also, it would take the fun out of doing the job. However, color match to the existing above is paramount. Applying the designs is somewhat artsy. Like what nature creates, it's a variety of intertwined abstract patterns. I have no rhyme or reason to the stencils used except to vary the patterns as much as possible. Color application is a little more structured. The design is first established with brown, and then shadowed with the brownish black. Base color and highlights are used to touch up in areas where more light tones are needed. Not seen in the video is the kick panel sample. Approved by the customer, I am using it as a guide to make sure the finished product turns out the same. It took me 8 hours from arriving and masking off the car to complete both front doors. It's a close to completed result with the masking removed. Turned out pretty good, but I'm not done yet. The next day I added some personal touches in gold the customer requested. I didn't think airbrushing the letters this small would turn out as clean, so I made stencils. Clear coat was then applied. The spray can variety is sufficient for an interior application. It really made the colors pop. The customer was very happy with the results and the trophy he got at that weekend show. Special thanks to Cars, Creative Automotive Restyling Specialist, for the use of their shop. I also did the snazzy lettering on their 31 Plymouth sedan delivery.
Thank you for watching Cars and Art, Art and Cars. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Also check out flamesartworks.com for full galleries of my work. As well as following on Instagram and Facebook, contact me on any of these platforms if you would like any artwork done. Again, thank you for watching. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.